And now, the SleepHawk Worldwide Podcast. Here are your hosts, Brandon Staton and Tyler Hansbrough.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the SleepHawk Worldwide Podcast. This is Sleep Dog with the Big Hawk.
What's up, everybody? It's the Big Hawk. It's getting kind of colder outside, but a few games. We got, we're going to talk about that. But hey, you know what? We're back in the studio. We got a great podcast for you, and I'm ready to go.
A little nippy out there. We're finding our cadence here, guys, as we get back into basketball season. It's really hard. Big Hawk and I are just talking about who are we? What do we talk about? I think that sounds pretty natural when basketball comes around, but it can be a little difficult to figure out some of this other stuff and what you guys are interested in. So good news is this solves a problem for itself right now. We're going to get mainly into Kansas game. We're going to take a look ahead at American as well. Obviously, big matchup for the Tar Heels on hardwood. Football team was idle this week, so going down to Phog Allen, probably the biggest, maybe the biggest opener, regular season opener in a long time. I mean, if not ever, or start to the season. Maybe not the opener, but that game lived up to its hype. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I texted Big Hawk at a certain point, and I was like, buddy, we might lose by 40. And then next thing I know, we're just chipping away. I turn on the NBA game at halftime, and then, I let it bleed over just a hair. And I was like, looked at the score, and very early in the second half, we were chipping away even more. And me being extremely superstitious, I was like, all right, maybe I just kind of, not turn it back on quite yet because I'm a little. And then next thing I know, we were up by 3. And then next thing I know, I turn it back on, and that was that. But I thought, it was a great game. Great sort of comeback for Carolina. Stunk that we couldn't pull it out. But I didn't think we necessarily played the best game and still had a shot beating number one team in the country. I thought Kansas looked great in the first half. So, I don't know. What did you think, Big Hawk? I thought it was a if you're going to lose one, early in the season, I think you can live with that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think every UNC fan, every Tar Heel out there, they kind of went to the nightmare scenario during the first half. Mm-hmm. And you got to remember, there's a lot of history between these programs. We have not beat them since Coach Williams was coaching at Kansas. So they've had it out for us. I've been involved with that. And I was hoping we'd walk up there and smack them on their home court. It still would make up for some of the stuff they beat us in the tournament with. But listen, my first thought is I think this is the toughest environment in college basketball. Phog Allen, a lot of people think Duke is. No. A lot of people that go into Phog, they leave saying this is the best home court atmosphere in college basketball. And, it was you got to give the kids a lot of credit because they did give themselves a chance to win. But I would have liked to see us get off to a better start. It's a tough place to play, and you got to say, a lot of people go into Phog, and a lot of teams when they get down that big, they probably would have just give in, but they fought back. They fought back hard in the second. But just my initial thoughts are, Kansas is a little bit of an older team. They've been playing with each other for a minute. They've added some new pieces. The Zeke Mayo kid was unbelievable. Looks like he's going to be a huge factor. He's going to be one of those guys that a lot of people are talking about, here in the next few weeks once he gets in the spotlight a little bit more. I will want to say, though, that I believe that North Carolina will be a much different team here in about a month or so. And the reason why I think that is because I think Drake Powell and N. Jackson are going to evolve. And I think for us to be really good, they have to be big-time contributors. And I think that we're going to have a lot of growth from them, and we're going to see these freshmen develop. And I think that they're going to give this team a huge spark. And I just think that we're going to be a much different team. Now, if you look at it, you know, R.J. Davis didn't have his best shooting night, 3 for 15, 1 for 7 from the 3. But the Harris kid for Kansas, arguably the best defender in the country. They did a very good job on R.J. You have to give them credit. And, you know, we've been concerned. One of our biggest concerns for UNC is rebounding. Now, I've talked about it. You know, Armando's not here. Harrison Ingram cleared up whenever he was gone. Who's going to be that guy that steps in and is going to grab a lot of those rebounds? We have not been out-rebounded any of the first 2 games. We out-rebounded Elon, and we out-rebounded Kansas. Now, it wasn't by a lot, but you know what? We're not getting killed on the boards right now. You know, rim protection is still a little bit of a concern. I would like to see Jalen, you know, protect the rim a little bit more. But after the first 2 games, a big bright spot that I see on this team, and I've talked about it, Jalen Withers. I think that he can provide a huge lift for this team. And I think actually you could find him playing the center position a lot. I think he has it athletically. Yeah, he'll be a little undersized, but this team likes to run. They like to get up and down the court. That's a style they're going to have to play. And so I think Jay Witt would fit perfectly for that. But, you know, the first half was so bad. We'll go ahead and fast forward to that second. I thought we came out with more intensity. I felt like we really brought it to them. You know, we withstood their haymaker in the first half, and I felt like we came out swinging. And I love that mentality. You know, as you look at it, you know, I really felt like, you know, Vin Allen Lubin came in. He provided us a huge spark as well, gave us some good solid minutes. I really like what I see from him. And I do like the fact that he's using fouls. I love it when bench players come in there and use those fouls because they don't get rollover minutes with those things. So you're going to, you know, if you have them, might as well use them and use them to protect the paint. There's nothing wrong with playing physical, knocking and bumping some people. If you're a bench player, pick up those fouls. There's nothing wrong with that. Now we're talking about good, smart fouls, not all the way at the other end of the court. That's never good. Yeah, when I thought the bright spots were Jay Witt and Vin Allen Lubin, I thought they provide us a huge spark. And when Jay Witt hit those 2 threes late in the game, I have never in my life ever thought I'd be screaming at the TV for Jalen Withers to shoot another 3. When he was wide open in the corner, I thought he was going to throw it up. He had a little bit of a heat check, but I loved what he did, and I thought he came in. I think he's going to be a player that continues to progress. I like what I'm seeing from him. But, you know, at the end of the day, I think the thing that really kind of got after us was Hunter Dickinson. He just kind of came up for him big when they needed, you know, big shots. He was able to get a rebound, get their boards, control the paint, and whenever they needed a bucket, they found a way to get him open and went inside to Hunter, and he delivered. He's arguably, you know, one of the best players in the country. There's going to be you know, I think there'll be, you know, a good argument between him and RJ maybe when it's all said and done. But the Zeke Mayo kid came in, played unbelievable, hit some big shots for Kansas. And also the DeJuan Harris Jr. kid who played defense on RJ 2 years ago. He was Defensive Player of the Year in the Big 12. So you got to give him credit. He did it. You know, RJ's not an easy guy to guard. He has a torch and he can get hot. He did a good job on him. And, you know, I said before the game, I really felt like RJ had to go off because if he went off and he had a big scoring night, I really felt like that was almost our only way we could win at Kansas. But it turns out, you know, he didn't really go off and we still had a chance to win. So I was excited about that. The one thing I will say is, you know, late game execution, we need to tighten that up just a little bit. And you saw that with Elon. RJ kind of bailed us out there. Hit some big shots late in the game when Elon got the lead, and then RJ kind of like, no, this is my house, went off. Now, at Kansas, that last possession, I really wish RJ would have had a chance to shoot the shot. But, you know, you got to give them credit. They didn't allow him to get the ball. They played great defense. I thought we could have got a little better look, but sometimes that's the way it goes. But overall, I'm satisfied, and I think this team is going to continue to grow. And at the end of the day, I think they will be one of the best teams in the country. So I'm happy. I'm happy that they went down swinging. They didn't roll over, which it's to go to Phog and take a haymaker like they hit us with, and then come back and almost beat them. I got to give them a lot of credit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing that jumps off the page at me on the stat sheet is, your three primary offensive weapons go 10 for 36, and you lose to Kansas at Kansas by 3, and you have a shot to tie it at the end of the game. That was a relatively solid look. You mentioned it. The Kansas defense had a lot to do with that. I mean, and that says a lot. I mean, like, you scored 90 points against a team that's hounding you defensively. And the thing I like most about how they kind of operated was they got to the free throw line and they made their free throw. I mean, 28-31 from the line is going to get you out of some challenging shooting nights, right? So, I mean, look, that and you typically are going to see, older teams, shoot better from the line, be smarter about getting to the line, shots not falling, getting to the bucket, that kind of thing. And I think you saw a lot of that for Carolina. It's a bummer because, you'd love to come in and, have a statement win early in the season and say, hey, you guys forgot about us, right? Going to have more chances. You got Alabama coming up, I think, on the schedule here soon, and some other big games. We talked about that a couple pods ago. So look, I mean, I'm not sitting here thinking it's okay, right? Like, I mean, I don't, you don't want to lose. Clearly, you want to win this game, but you didn't. So, evaluating it for what it is, I think in the way that a loss goes, to your point, you get down 20. I mean, we've seen it happen. That can snowball. That can damage morale early in the season if you go in and start maybe second guessing. Like, I mean, because think about it, these kids are human beings, right? Some of these kids made choices to go to Carolina over other places. Transfers made choices, and it could start creeping in. Like, man, should I have gone to this place or that place? Right? It's just these are very logical things that people would start asking if you had if you'd let them just continue to truck stick you. But to get back into the game like they did, I thought was a very positive. I think to the contrary, as a dude that's on a podcast and peaked in high school in terms of basketball, but I think this actually did the exact opposite for that. Like, you get down and then you sort of have that realization that, yeah, dude, we belong here. Maybe you have a little self-doubt in the first half. Shots aren't falling, wondering what's going on, getting there at halftime, make some adjustments, make some changes, and essentially do the exact same thing to Kansas that he did to you in the first half. And, you just wound up on the losing end. I thought Bill Self put it very well at the end of the game. He had a quote, something about, how the teams really just seem to be cheering for themselves and not, trash talking each other. It really seemed like it was a, sort of a class act game from that perspective. There's a ton of respect there from both programs before the game, during the game, after the game. Bill Self won 590 games. Dude's won more games or the same amount of games as Phog Allen. Dude, stadium's named after, right? So the game had a lot to offer, and I think you got to look at it as, I think the last thing I'll say about it is, as a fan, you really love to see him play Kansas in the beginning of the season. You really love to see him put real hard games on the schedule early on. And 2 out of 3 things that can happen are positive. You win, you lose a game like this, or you get doors blown off and realize you ain't maybe not going to be that good, right? So, look, obviously, and in that order in terms of preference. From what I saw, RJ's not going to go 3 for 15 every night. Seth Trimble's been fantastic. He's not going 4 for 10. Elliott's not going to go 3 for 11, right? You mentioned Withers, 9 rebounds. Jalen Washington probably going to play a little better over time, right? I think you're going to see this game be something that we look back on as a very mediocre game for him. 9 boards, 7 points. Like, I think he's going to be a fixture, especially as we get into conference play. You know, you mentioned it too, the young guys, Powell, Jackson, some of those guys getting in a rhythm and getting some more minutes and experience under their belt. Yeah, I'm not real worried about it. This is another game we might see again sometime this season, and I think we'll fare better should that happen.
Yeah, and I think if we see, Kansas and North Carolina, we look at these two teams here in a month or two, I think Carolina is going to have the most growth. Mm-hmm. And, I think that Ian and Drake are just going to be totally different and better players. They're going to be a lot more comfortable, and I really feel like they're going to really evolve. They're very talented. I love their games. I thought N. Jackson played well on the road in a tough environment, so that's pretty promising for a freshman. A couple things that I'm looking at from the game, if I want to be critical, first of all, you can't allow a team to shoot 48%. Most of the time when you allow a team to shoot 48% from the field, you're not putting, the odds aren't in your favor, basically. Mm-hmm. You've got to tighten that up. And when I look at points in the paint, you look at 32 for UNC, 50 for Kansas. Now you could say, yeah, they got Hunter Dickinson. We talk about our style. We want to run and we want to get out and really push the ball. That is supposed to promote easy buckets, layups, fast break points, which we got. We got 17 of those. But you'd like to see us not settle so much for outside jump shots and find ways to get easy buckets. And we're going to have to figure that out in the half court. And somehow we're going to have to, design. Guys are going to have to cut, move better, but we're going to have to get better looks sometimes. And, a lot of times, a lot of these guys are kind of, they're outside of RJ. Seth's starting to show a lot of promise, but a lot of these guys aren't really proven players. They haven't had this amount of, playing time, or, they're starting to get, be a bigger piece of this team. And you're going to have to earn the defense to come out there and guard you on the outside shooting. You're going to have to draw them out. Okay. And you're going to have to do that. First of all, you just can't come down and start shooting like that. You've got to find ways to get easy buckets and get the ball inside and not make it so difficult and settle for outside jump shots all the time.
Yeah, I figured you were going to go to the outside. I was going to ask you about it. Whether you felt like – I felt like in the first half especially, what really – Kansas just looks so athletic, so fast, so under control, right? I mean, they turned the ball over 4 times. I mean, that's you shoot 48% as Kansas at home and only turn the ball over 4 times. Like, you're going to win a lot of games. And I just felt like, they maybe were sharper early. I feel like my question, I guess, to you is that a natural place? Is that a natural sort of danger when you get behind in a game like that early, big, that you feel more pressure to start looking for, 3-point shots to draw back even? Hey, you get a stop and a couple threes, and all of a sudden a 20-point lead is 14. Hell, I couldn't subtract there for a second. Is that something that comes into play, or is that just more of a is that just more, do you think, the fact they got behind have nothing to do with it?
Well, I mean, sometimes whenever you get a lead like that late in the game, you play not to lose the game instead of play to win the game. It's a mentality shift. I think at times we got a little hesitant. I really feel like, some guys caught the ball that, that corner shot where Jay Witt had just hit 2 threes. And then he caught it on the corner, kind of hesitated a little bit, looked like he was a little bit surprised he was that wide open. But I was screaming at my TV for him to shoot it. And, the only reason I say that is because Jay Witt's not like, his jump shots, not the smoothest, but he had just made a couple. And he had given us a big boost. And I think one of those shots was from the corner three, and the corner three is one of the more easier threes you can take, much shorter distance than any other three. I like my percentages there, but late in the game when you get a low lead, I really believe in not settling so much. Once you move, you get some easy looks. It's not, you're not always out there trying to find, the home run play. You're not trying to search that out. You're trying to take care of the ball. You're trying to get a good look and extend that lead. But Kansas only having 4 turnovers. I mean, that's very impressive. And that's a sign of an older, more veteran team also. But, the way that Carolina likes to push and the style that they want to, play at, 4 turnovers, I mean, to be honest, that might be too conservative. Because if you push the ball and you promote that pace, it's just going to naturally bring on some more turnovers because there's going to be so many more possessions versus like, you look at Virginia and they don't have a lot of turnovers usually because they place. Yeah, they play so slow and they're so disciplined.
Yeah.
But when you get out and run, sometimes you're bringing on that reckless style of play. But we saw some different lineups. We saw some different rotations. Van Allen Lubin's a guy that has kind of come in, and I really feel like he's gotten a lot of things around the rim. He's gotten some offensive rebounds. He finds ways to put himself in position to score. I really like his off-the-ball movement, but one thing he does do is he is a heck of a screener, and he really screens RJ's man really well, which allows, anytime that Van Allen Lubin is going to set a screen on RJ, his man, if he hits that screen, Van Allen Lubin's man's going to have to help on RJ. And he's been rolling really well towards the rim. And they found him a few times. He's just been putting himself in good position. And, we've talked about the bench in the past and needing players to step up. I think Van Allen Lubin, he has been a bright spot. And, honestly, I didn't see him coming in and playing like this. I just like his style. He's a little undersized, doesn't always have to be pretty, but he gets the job done. And I feel like he's been a good add. He's provided a spark. But, I think this team has a lot of growth to do. They're still, finding rotation, finding guys, what works, what doesn't. And I think here in a month or two, all that will start to come together a little bit more. But, the last thing, you got to give Hubert Davis a lot of credit for taking this game. A lot of coaches at big-time schools, they play these cupcake games. You look at Duke, played Army, smashed them by like 50. It's in,
how does that come about, Tyler? How does that come about? How does this game get proposed? How does this wind up on the schedule?
From what I understand, Hubert Davis pushed this. He was like, hey, let's get a home with Kansas. And what I really love about this is I'm not the biggest fan of the neutral site games. I like bringing these games right to the students at the university, have the crowd, have the atmosphere. I just love that. And I love the fact that they did this because a lot of people, a lot of Carolina fans, we like to travel, we want to go check out Phog Allen, a lot of history in that place. And then Kansas is going to travel here. And the one thing that you got to look at, though, is I was laughing in my mind is because, man, these students and Kansas fans, they are still not over Coach Williams. Like a lot of them have a ton of hatred for UNC.
Yeah.
And so this would be like, in my mind, I was thinking this is like a dream scenario for hardcore Kansas fans. Carolina comes in there, and then they just I just felt like the atmosphere was going to be absolutely crazy.
It was. They said something on the broadcast that was crazy to me. They drew this line. I can't remember who was doing the game, but Hubert Davis played for Dean Smith. Dean Smith played for Phog Allen. Phog Allen played for James Naismith. Invented basketball. That's pretty wild to think about. 4 guys from Hubert Davis, and you're at the invention of basketball. Kind of cool. A lot of history with Kansas, and that, I was just curious about that. And like, so one other question to kind of dig a little deeper on that. So I understand. All right, Hubert lobbies for the game, and I agree with you completely. Like, boss move there. Getting that one on in the format it is. But then how do they determine how it fits on the schedule? Like, who sits there and says, you know what, we're gonna play this game right at gate instead of it like Christmas or whatever?
I think you have a little more leeway with your schedule early on.
Got it.
Because mid-year you kind of get the conference play, and then you always kind of schedule around, like we have the Maui coming up. But, I have to look into that. I think we have the SEC, ACC challenge now. Yep. So I'm guessing that's how,
Alabama games coming up. Yeah.
Yeah, the Alabama game. I do like how some of these people or whoever selects these games, I always like when they're like, Alabama knocked out UNC, let's have them go to Chapel Hill, because it's so smart, and it's one of the more common sense things to do. And I can't wait for that atmosphere. A lot of people think Alabama is the number one team in the country. So that's going to be a big time game.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I just figure, never really thought about it, but what actually goes into getting some of these games landed and where they occur on the schedule is kind of interesting, especially to your point, when you don't have the sort of promotional thing, Maui, the Jumpman, this, that, and the third, ACC, SEC, or ACC Big Ten like they used to have, right? Sort of guiding it. It's kind of makes sense when those are the situations, but I mean, this one kind of came out of left field, and I'm with you, man. I'm here for it. I almost feel like, dude, I don't know, a whole episode on scheduling would be kind of interesting. But anyway, speaking of schedule, coming into Friday, we're going to be playing American. Obviously, this is sort of like, look, we think most fans are probably like a little leery after the first game against Elon. I mentioned earlier that I thought Kansas was a home opener. I forgot that Elon wasn't even an exhibition game, right? And that wasn't the most convincing. First game of the season, no big deal. Who cares? Coming back to American, like what, obviously, Carolina is like a 1,000,000,000 favorite here. So where from your perspective does a team leave a game like they just played, knowing they have an opponent coming up that they, are heavily favored on? Like, how do you prepare for this game? What role does this game play for the development of the team? And I guess, what are you looking for? How are you looking for the Tar Heels to respond?
First of all, American had a lot of injuries last year. They have a young team, so a lot of the guys haven't played that much with each other. So there's not a lot of scouting to be done. But I'm a big believer in these early games, especially against teams that you're going to outmatch talent-wise, athleticism-wise, size and height, all that stuff. I always believe it's better to focus internally and try to sharpen what you do best. Really try to, focus on yourself a little bit more than scouting. But I think what you do is you go back, you look at the film, you look at what you need to improve on. And Coach Davis has said from the beginning, this team needs to bring it defensively. And, any time that they've stepped up, their defensive intensity or mentality, this team has gone on big runs, and you can see that. And that's something that Coach Davis has harped on and says, hey, when we come out here and we play hard defense, we get in people, we make it tough for them, then our offense, we start to run at the pace we want to play at, things really start to open up, and that's when we go on these runs. So I would look at what I'm guessing is Coach Davis going back and preaching defensive principles, trying to really get after, mix it up, and trying to focus on what we can do better defensively, because we allowed Kansas to shoot 48% from the field. We got to be a little bit better than that. And this team's capable of it. They have the talent to get out there and be one of the better defensive teams in the country. So I believe that that's what they'll do. They're probably looking at different lineups too, who plays well with each other. We've had some guys come in, show some bright spots, and, I think that's what they'll focus on, Sleep. And hopefully they come out and they really, come out with the chip on their shoulder. They just lost a big game. They didn't really, the win against Elon wasn't all that sexy. So I would come out with the mentality like, hey, you know what? First of all, if I was a player, I'd be a little upset that everyone's happy that we, played Kansas close. And I'm not really big on, good job, you did well. We got down 20. We got to come out with a better mindset from the start. And this team's capable of that. And I would focus on coming out the right way and starting the game with the defensive intensity and really pushing that and maintaining that, because another bright spot is the chemistry on this team is really well. The body language, the kids are pulling for each other, and I really like that. And this team is capable of that, and that's what I like to see.
So how does the communication work? Like, you're getting ready for this game or any other game, right? And how does it get communicated through practice and then really like measured in the game? Like, for example, my mind as you go through that immediately wanders to like, how do you quantify sort of a performance? And let's just use this game as an example. Do you go in and does the team have a goal that says, hey, right, we're not, because obviously letting a team shoot a high percentage is not really sort of a quantifiable thing in the sense that that's more of a symptom of poor defense, right? So is it, hey, we're not going to let these guys score 20 points in the first half, or hey, we're not going to turn the ball over? Are there measuring sticks that the coach comes to the team and sort of challenges them with, or is it more, when you mention like the defensive intensity, right? I wonder as a fan, how do you measure that, right? It's one thing to get them hyped up, and I think everybody that's a fan is like, you feel like that with the right pregame speech, like everybody's going to run through the brick wall and just guard the heck out of everybody. But what are the tangible things that people do or say or talk about to like, sort of get everybody invested in what the team's trying to accomplish?
Yeah, well, first of all, you watch the game film, and one thing I would, look at is you want to make sure that you're doing your defensive principles right. What I mean by that, we have a game plan defensively. Obviously, at Kansas, we wanted to front Hunter sometimes. Okay, so fronting him and not allowing him to have the ball in the post. Fronting is where his defender gets directly in front of him and the basketball. That way, they can have a direct pass into the post at Hunter in a good scoring position. The problem with that is I felt like there's a few letdowns where you need the guy guarding the ball. You need him to step up and pressure the ball handler, because if you allow him to make an easy pass, he can make that lob right over the front defender of Hunter, and it really puts Hunter in good position, just catch and go right up and score. I felt like we could have pressured the ball a little bit better, and then you look at your defensive rotations and see how sharp they were, who missed some defensive rotations, and then you would, typical Carolina practice, you'd have an offensive quote. You have a quote of the day, you have an offensive emphasis of the day, then you have a defensive emphasis of the day. And then in particular, sometimes it was just run or help the helper. And so basically you would have, you're going to do drills, a shell drill, make sure everybody's in good help side position. Everyone's, basically, intertwined or, connected. Whenever one guy rotates, the other guy's got to slide over and help him. So you want to make sure, especially for a younger team and the guys who haven't played much, you just want to make sure that your defensive principles and your help side defense, you want to make sure all that stuff is sharp, especially going into conference play and really honing that in the beginning of the year.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I think, it's funny because as we're talking, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I'm like, we do a lot of like, what is our opinion of this, that, and the other? And, sometimes I forget to just ask you questions about, some things that you kind of take for granted. I mean, we see the product on the floor as a fan. You're just sort of like, what the hell, right? Like, why didn't this guy do this? Or how could he miss the guy like me sitting on the couch? Like, how do you miss that shot, brother? I take that shot 40 times. I don't hit it. So it's interesting to see, like, the how and the why and what goes into actually, communicating what look, if you let a team shoot 48% or you lose or you don't score, like at some point it's pretty simple. Like, you got to defend, or you got to score more points, you got to make shots, you got to do all these things. But okay, like, how, right? And then how does a coach come in? Because I think, I think that we're guilty of this as fans in every sport. It's just like, well, they're losing. So, but I often wonder, whether coaches are really that bad or really that good, or whether players are, as good as, sometimes it's athleticism. And another thing that I think is you're responding to that is instinct, right? Because you mentioned pressure in the ball. All right. Well, obviously one of the things that comes with pressure in the ball is that guy has the ability to dribble the ball around you, right? And so now how does that throw everything out of whack? And then you got a guy that you don't get the pressure, and so the lob does come in. So now you have a help side guy come in, and how does he respond? And then you got the other guy on the other team that sees that help side guy leave him, and how does he respond, right? So it's sort of all interconnected. And that's the fascinating thing to start to think about and unpack, is the cause and effect of each decision on the court at any given time. And I think that my guess would be that when teams start really clicking, when the chemistry gets good, when the momentum starts rolling, the kids start to anticipate a little of these things, and sort of the fringe pieces of, all right, maybe I overpressured just a little bit here, or their ability to react to the changes, to the variables. The time it takes to react and react correctly to those shortens. And that's when you start seeing, I would imagine, teams just really get out and run and play and defend and win.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sleeping, I've always talked about, that's why, these more veteran teams in college basketball, or these guys, these teams that somehow they find guys to stay at the school now for 3 or 4 years. That's why veteran players are so important, is because they know the right spots to be in on the court, and they know, good. I always say playing winning basketball, boxing out, putting yourself in the right positions, running, taking smart shots. All that stuff comes with experience and knowledge. And, I just feel like kind of in the new era of basketball where, it's everyone's leaving. It's getting harder to teach that, and the product is getting not as good, or it's not as developed as it once was. But you're talking about, a team loses by 20 and they've got to play better defense. What is better defense? That's a great statement, because I've always watched games, and happens in every sport. Post-game press conference, the coaches, we've just got to decide if we're going to come out here and be a good team. Yeah. It's all about effort and attitude. And how many times can you say that?
Yeah.
Over and over before. It's not always effort and attitude.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something else. And we're
right.
It's just like, how many times can you say that? And I always laugh when coaches do that. I was like, dang, you're trying to put your players under the bus a little bit. I mean, I don't.
Well, rarely sorry, go ahead.
Rarely do you find I'm just going to half-ass it today.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, We've seen it, but it's not an everyday occurrence. It's less likely than is likely.
Yeah, the one play at a time thing. It's like, okay, but what are at some point you got to break this down and understand what the play is. Yeah. Watch the guys run around like they don't know where the ball's at. So I don't know, man. That's fascinating, and I think it's one of the things that, as a Carolina fan, I think we do have the benefit of, because you see a lot of guys that you can point to and say, hey, I watched this person get better over time. You were one of them. Luke May was one of them. RJ, Marcus Page, Armando, it's hard to really remember how they were in the beginning versus how they are in the end, because all you see is the game they played yesterday, right? But it would be, a fascinating exercise to go back and check that out. Anyway, I just think that it's interesting and fascinating to see where the team, will make some calibrations, tighten the screws. And that's one of the things I think we should get into, and probably will get into, this season, that we haven't before, is, the how and the why. And that way, when people are listening to this podcast, they can then go in and watch the next game and say, they were talking about that. And, I can kind of see that. And, I almost said be a little bit smarter, but that's a high standard. I mean, you ain't gonna get much smarter listening to us two. But anyway, I mean, I think you got American, and I think we'll be back on before they play again, because we were just looking at it before they got after American. They will have Hawaii on on Saturday, November 23rd. So we got
Sleep Dog. Where's that game at?
I don't know. Well, Hawaii's the home team, so I'm guessing that's in Hawaii, and then they play Dayton on the 25th. This is dangerously close to Thanksgiving. I think this is the week before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, that's at Maui. Yeah, all this is going to happen in Honolulu. Then we head on over to Maui.
All right, I'm gonna get you out of here. I'm gonna get you out of here on this one because you went there. You guys did Hawaii, right?
Oh yeah.
How many times did you do it? Did they do it every season?
I think it's once every 4 years.
Once every 4 years. Okay, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
oh no, the tournament happens every year.
Sorry, but yeah, Carolina only goes every few years. Yeah, so I mean, dude, what is that like? Well, we'll talk about that next episode because we can save that for next episode because we're previewing up to it. Teaser alert. That'll be a great rabbit hole to go down. A Big Hawk in Hawaii. Anyway, so Tar Heels, like I said, idol in football. I like this, man. I like this basketball.
Mm-hmm.
Who cares about anything else? Jonathan Kuminga is getting a raw deal, but hey, we'll unpack that later when we don't have anything else to talk about. Sleep Dogs fantasy, dude. That's like Chris McCaffrey comes back. I'm like, finally, dude, we'll get on a run here. Guy has 39 yards rushing today. My football team's done. So I'm in just very real danger of having to attend a WNBA game next year. As
I'm a fire cell.
You got anything else, Big Hawk?
Stay safe.
Stay safe.